Most households that build an emergency pantry do the math once, feel satisfied, and never check it again. Buy enough canned goods for 2 weeks, tuck them in a closet, move on with life. Here's the problem with that math. It's usually built on assumptions that quietly stop being true the moment an actual emergency starts. Picture a pantry that looks like a 2-week supply sitting on the shelf. Now picture the same pantry actually being used during a real disruption. More water needed than planned, kids eating more than usual, a stove that runs on fuel nobody accounted for. The shelf didn't change. The math around it did, and most families never see that gap coming until they're already living inside it. 12 reasons, counting down, each one chipping away at that 2-week estimate a little more than the last. FEMA's own numbers, USDA's own food safety guidance, and the basic math of feeding real people under real stress. By the end, you'll understand why the number on the label and the number that actually matters are rarely the same. Let's start with the one most people forget to count at all. Number 12, hidden calories. You forget to count. What makes this one sneaky is that it hides inside a math error almost everyone makes without noticing. Most pantry planning starts with meals. We'll eat pasta 3 nights, soup 2 nights. Instead of starting with calories, which is the number that actually determines how long food lasts. Federal emergency planning guidance sets a baseline of roughly 2,000 calories per adult per day. And for a family of 4, that's 8,000 calories daily just to hold steady before anyone does anything physically demanding. Picture a chart with 2 bars side by side, one showing how many meals a family thinks they've stocked, and a second, shorter bar showing how many actual calories those meals contain once you count them properly. The gap between those 2 bars is where a 2-week supply quietly becomes an 11-day supply, without a single item leaving the shelf early. Most people count containers. The math that actually matters counts calories. If you've built a pantry around a specific number of days, it's worth doing the calorie math once, properly, rather than trusting the shelf to tell you the truth on its own. That gap is small on its own. It's about to get company. Number 11, snacks disappear faster than staples. Most households assume their pantry empties evenly, 1 meal at a time, in the order it was planned. That's not how it actually goes. Snacks and easy-reach items, crackers, chips, granola bars, anything that doesn't require cooking, get pulled first, and they get pulled by people who aren't necessarily hungry, just bored, stressed, or looking for something to do with their hands during a long, uncertain day. Picture 2 lines on the same chart, one for staples like rice and beans, holding a slow, steady slope downward. The other for snack items, dropping almost straight down in the first 48 hours. Same starting pantry, 2 completely different depletion curves. And the second one is the one nobody planned around. The category most people overstock because it feels comforting is often the exact category that runs out first, precisely because it's comforting. If your pantry planning treats every shelf-stable item as equally durable, this is the gap most likely to surprise you in the very first days of any real disruption. Water is the next item on this list, and it turns out to be connected to this one in a way most people never expect. Number 10. Drinking water changes food consumption. Here's where things get interesting, because water and food aren't actually 2 separate categories the way most pantry checklists treat them. FEMA's official guidance is 1 gallon of water per person per day for drinking and basic sanitation, and a normally active person needs roughly 3/4 of a gallon of that just from fluids alone. In hot conditions or during physical exertion, that water requirement can double. Picture a seesaw with water on one side and food consumption on the other. When water is scarce or people are consciously rationing it, they eat differently, leaning away from salty, dry, or high-protein foods that increase thirst and toward whatever requires the least additional water to prepare or digest. That shift changes which parts of a pantry actually get used, regardless of what was planned. Most people planning a pantry treat water and food as 2 separate checklists, In practice, one shortage changes the other. If your household's water reserve is tight, expect your food consumption pattern to shift with it. Not because anyone decided that, but because thirst quietly makes the decision for you. Speaking of shifting patterns, the next item runs out faster than almost anyone expects. Number 9. Protein runs out before calories. At first glance, a pantry stocked with rice, pasta, canned vegetables, and a modest amount of canned meat or beans looks balanced. Run the actual numbers, and a different picture shows up. Bulk carbohydrates are calorie-dense and cheap to stockpile in volume, which is exactly why most pantries are heavy on them. Protein sources, canned meat, canned fish, dried legumes prepared properly, take up more shelf space and cost more per calorie, so households naturally stock less of them relative to how much gets eaten. Picture two lines again, total calories holding roughly flat for 2 weeks, while protein-specific calories drop off closer today, 8 or 9 in a typical household stockpile. The total calorie count looks fine on paper. The protein line tells a different story entirely. The math that keeps you fed and the math that keeps you nutritionally steady aren't the same math, and most pantry planning only checks the first one. If protein sources make up a small share of your stockpile relative to bulk carbs, this is worth rebalancing before anything else on this list. The next item explains why running out of one specific supply can stop you from cooking anything at all, protein or otherwise. Number 8. Cooking fuel becomes the bottleneck. Most people stockpile food and completely forget to stockpile the thing required to turn that food into a meal. Propane itself has a genuinely indefinite shelf life. It doesn't degrade the way food does, and the only real limit is the condition of the tank or valve holding it. That sounds reassuring right up until you look at consumption rates instead of shelf life. A small camp stove canister lasts only a couple of days under intermittent cooking, and even running a single burner on its lowest setting typically stretches to just 4 or 5 days before it's empty. Feeding a family 3 meals a day for a full month realistically requires around 120 pounds of cooking fuel, a number almost nobody has actually calculated before they needed to. Picture a chart where the food supply line holds steady for 2 weeks, while the fuel supply line, measured in actual cooking hours available, drops to 0 closer to day 5. Same pantry, 2 completely different bottlenecks, and the shorter one is the one that actually determines when hot meals stop. You can have 2 weeks of food and 3 days of the ability to cook any of it. If your backup fuel plan is a single small canister, this is the item most likely to end your hot meals long before your food supply itself runs out. Number 7. Families eat more during stress. This is the one that fooled me a little, because the effect is bigger than most planning accounts for. Emergency planning research on real disaster consumption patterns shows people often eat 20 to 30% more than their normal baseline during a genuine emergency, driven by a mix of stress, disrupted routines, boredom, and in many households, kids specifically needing more frequent reassurance in the form of food. Picture a planning chart built entirely on normal, calm, everyday appetite. Then picture that same chart with a 25% taller bar sitting right next to it, representing what actually gets eaten once stress enters the picture. That gap is the difference between a stockpile that lasts 14 days on paper and one that lasts closer to 11 in practice. Most pantry math is built on how much a family eats on an ordinary Tuesday. Real emergencies don't run on ordinary Tuesdays. If your calorie planning doesn't build in a stress buffer, this is one of the more reliable ways an emergency stockpile runs short, before anyone even notices anything is wrong. Notice the pattern building across these last few items: calories, protein, fuel, appetite. Every single one of them runs out faster in practice than it does on a spreadsheet. That pattern is about to show up twice more before this list is finished. Number 6. Food waste adds up quickly. Most households assume stored food gets used efficiently once it's actually needed. In practice, without the normal routines of a functioning kitchen, reliable refrigeration, predictable schedules, an easy way to track what's already been opened, waste creeps in fast. a partially used can without refrigeration, a bag of rice that gets damp, a meal cooked in a larger batch than anyone can finish. None of it is dramatic on its own. All of it quietly shortens the runway. Picture a line representing food actually available for eating, running below the line representing food technically still in the pantry. With the gap between them widening every single day, an emergency continues. USDA's own guidance on rotating stock, using older items first, checking regularly for spoilage, exists precisely because that gap is real and predictable, not because it might happen. The pantry inventory and the food actually available to eat are two different numbers, and the gap between them only grows the longer a disruption lasts. Simple rotation habits close that gap more than almost anything else on this list, and they cost nothing to start. Number 5. Portion sizes grow in emergencies. You've probably noticed this one without ever putting a number on it. People serve themselves more generously when they're anxious, bored, or simply looking for a sense of normalcy during a day that feels far from normal. This connects directly back to the stress-driven appetite increase covered earlier, but it shows up in a specific, measurable way. Larger servings scooped without much thought, second helpings that wouldn't have happened on an ordinary week. Picture a serving spoon that measures out a little more each time, meal after meal, without anyone consciously deciding to eat more. Multiply that small difference across 3 meals a day, across every person in a household, across 2 full weeks, and it adds up to a meaningfully larger dent in the pantry than the recipe card ever accounted for. Nobody decides to eat 30% more during a stressful week. It happens one generous scoop at a time. If your planning assumes portion sizes that match a calm, ordinary day, build in some slack, because the data on real emergency consumption says that assumption rarely holds. Number 4. Shelf life assumptions are often wrong. Here's one where the official guidance actually contradicts what most people believe, and it cuts in both directions. USDA's own food safety guidance is direct on this point. A best if used by date is a quality indicator, not a safety date, and canned food is often perfectly safe to eat, well past that printed date, provided the can itself is undamaged. Low-acid canned foods, meat, poultry, fish, most vegetables, commonly stay safe for 2 to 5 years. High-acid canned foods, like tomatoes and fruit, have a shorter safe window, closer to 12 to 18 months, and home canned goods are a different category entirely, with USDA recommending those be used within just 1 year. Picture 3 separate shelf life bars on the same chart. A long one for low-acid commercial cans, a noticeably shorter one for high-acid cans sitting right next to it, and a third, shortest bar for anything canned at home. 3 products that all look identical sitting on a pantry shelf, 3 genuinely different expiration realities underneath. Some of your pantry is more durable than the date on the label suggests. Some of it is less durable than you'd assume just by looking at it. Knowing which items fall into which category matters more than most people realize, and it's a 5-minute check that most pantries never get. Number 3. Household size changes everything. Most people plan their pantry once for the household they had when they built it, and never revisit the math when that household changes. A pantry sized for 3 people doesn't stretch cleanly to 4 just because someone moved in, and the reverse is just as often missed, with families over-planning for a household that's since gotten smaller. Picture a simple bar chart. Total pantry calories on one axis, held constant, and required daily calories climbing in a straight line as household size increases. The line where those 2 bars cross is the actual number of days your pantry lasts, and it moves every single time the number of people in your home changes, not just when the pantry itself does. Every person added to a household doesn't just add their own consumption, they add pressure to every other item on this list at the same time, from water to fuel to protein. If it's been a while since anyone in your house checked whether the pantry still matches who's actually eating from it, this is worth revisiting before the 2 items still ahead. Number 2. Emergency cooking uses more supplies than expected. At first glance, cooking during an emergency should use roughly the same water, fuel, and ingredients as cooking on a normal week. It doesn't, and the gap is bigger than most people expect. Without a functioning kitchen's normal shortcuts, a microwave, a reliable stovetop, running water on demand, Everything takes longer and uses more. Boiling water for rice on a single camp burner takes longer and burns more fuel than a home stovetop ever would. Washing dishes without running water uses more of your water reserve than a normal sink cycle. Cooking from raw, shelf-stable ingredients instead of pre-prepared food takes more steps, more fuel, and more of the water you already calculated as tight. Picture the fuel and water lines from earlier in this list, both already trending towards zero faster than planned. Now picture both lines getting steeper the moment actual cooking starts, because the inefficiency of emergency cooking compounds every resource this list has already covered. This is the item that connects almost everything already discussed into one single moment, the meal itself. Every earlier gap, fuel, water, protein, portion size, shows up hardest right here at the stove on the day it actually matters. One item remains, and it's the one that adds all of this together. Number 1. Your pantry may last half as long as you think. Every other item on this list chips away at the 2-week estimate a little at a time. This last one is just the sum of all of them, laid out honestly. Some emergency planning estimates suggest the average American household has less than 4 days of food on hand at any given moment. Far short of the 2-week buffer most people assume they're covering when they picture the pantry. Layer stress-driven eating at 20 to 30% above normal, real cooking fuel limits measured in days rather than weeks, protein depleting faster than total calories, water requirements that shift food choices on their own, and a household size nobody's rechecked recently. And a stockpile built to last 14 days can realistically run its course in something closer to 7 or 8. Picture the 2-week estimate as a single confident line on a chart, and every item on this list as a small notch cut into that line, one at a time. No single notch looks dramatic on its own. Stacked together, they cut that line roughly in half. Any pantry can be off by this much, and the households best protected against it aren't the ones with the most food on the shelf. They're the ones who actually ran the real math: calories, protein, fuel, water, and household size together, instead of assuming a full-looking shelf tells the whole story on its own. 12 reasons, and every one of them shares the same underlying lesson. A pantry doesn't fail because it runs empty. It fails because the assumptions underneath it were wrong from the start, and nobody checked until the day those assumptions actually got tested. Hidden calories, vanishing snacks, water reshaping appetite, protein disappearing before total calories do, fuel running out days before the food does, stress quietly inflating every meal. None of these show up on a grocery receipt. All of them show up the moment a real disruption starts. None of this means starting over or doubling every number you've already planned around. It means running the actual math once, honestly, the same way you'd check a budget, instead of just assuming there's enough left in the account. The households that come out ahead aren't the ones who bought the most. They're the ones who know exactly how long what they already have will really last. Which of these 12 hit closest to home for you? Drop it in the comments. I read every one.